What's up, everybody? This is a UFC 316 prediction video. I'm going to go over all the fights and give you my picks and a bit of reasoning behind them. Last week I had a pretty bad week, so I'm looking to make a comeback this week. And let's start with the main event. I'm going with Merab to win this fight by decision again. Now, this week, we've seen Sean O'Malley lose the colorful hair, and he's also being a bit more soft spoken than he already normally is. Now, I'm thinking he's doing that because he doesn't want to have to eat his own words if he's trash talking right now. So perhaps he himself doesn't even think he's going to win or has low confidence in his ability to win. That's the impression he's giving me. And then also the fact that they made this rematch despite O'Malley never fighting anybody else after his last loss, which was to Merab, even though Merab went on to fight Umar and defeat Umar. They just had Sean O'Malley sitting on the sidelines and have to prove nothing, and then just gave him an automatic rematch. So this implies to me that the UFC want Sean to win. And I don't know, perhaps if it does go to decision and if it's kind of close like it was last time, perhaps they're gonna have someone in the judge's ears to tell them to give the fight to Sean O'Malley if it's close enough. So, yeah, my logical brain's telling me Merab, and then my conspiracy part of my brain is telling me that if it goes similar to last time, it'll be Sean. Next fight, we have Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison. Now, in this fight, I'll admit I want Juliana Pena to win. And for some reason, I don't take a liking to Kayla Harrison. Not that I necessarily dislike her, but just the fact that she seems like she's the type of person who has taken steroids or some sort of enhancements in her past, and who knows, she might still be doing it. But she doesn't give me the impression that she has a natural physique. So right off the bat, I think she might be a cheater. But that's just hearsay. I don't have anything to back that up at the moment. I haven't looked up any specific sources or fact checked that. And on the other hand, ever since I saw Juliana Pena defeat Amanda Nunes after being such a big underdog, I became a fan of her. As you could probably relate, a lot of people, including myself, are, for the most part, big underdog supporters. Everybody loves a good underdog story. And again, here in this fight, Juliana Pena is another big underdog, similar to last time, like plus 500, okay, plus 45. So I want Julia Pena to win, but I believe that Kayla Harrison will be victorious. Just as Pena has said in some of her fight talk at the press conference, she was asking Kayla, how you plan on beating me? You gonna lay on top of me for 25 minutes? And unfortunately, I think if all else fails, Kayla always has that in the back. She can always pull that out from her arsenal and just say, oh, forget it. I'm just going to win with control time. And unfortunately, I think that's the more likely outcome. And so my logical brain is going with Kayla. But I hope I'm wrong. And next fight. Kevin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. So you see here, I'm picking Joe Pyfer. Now initially I was thinking this is weird. Especially when you look at the odds. Because Kevin is quite a big underdog. Despite having such great experience against the best. Against the top of the division. Literally almost winning the belt at one point against Israel Adesanya. So it was hard to just wrap my head around this. But I think, his only loss, Jack Hermanson, by decision. And his wins they're decent wins, but they're not really against the who's of the division. So I will, of course, as I always say, that when I make my parlays, like fights like this are more likely to get alternated into identical parlays. Where you just have the same parlay and just switch out the winners of a particular fight like this. Like on one you have Kevin, one you have Joe. But my logical mind is saying that Joe's going to win. He's the younger guy. And Kevin's still decently young, but he has, I guess, more wear and tear on him, you could say. And also on his last win versus D-Rod, that was 11 months ago, wow. But that was very unimpressive to me, to go to a decision with D-Rod. I did not like that. A loss to Sean Brady's okay. A win against Chris Curtis is good. Decision loss to Jared. Decision to Whitaker. See, that's what I'm saying. But that's like 3 years, almost 4 years ago. 4 years ago. So yeah, I'm going with Joe Pyfer. I think he's someone they're trying to build up. And even with a loss to Kelvin, they can still use this fight to help build up Joe. But I think he's going to get the win. And he's much bigger. The size difference when they're on the scales was quite large. Although that's nothing new to Kelvin. Yeah. Go with Pyfer, unfortunately. Even though I kind of don't like him. And his weird excuse about his pullout against Kelvin last time and blaming it on Mexico and Mexican food, like, weirdo. Now this one is very confusing. Mario Batista versus Patchy Mix. Now I admit right off the bat, I greatly dislike Mario Batista because of what he did to Jose Aldo. Refusing to strike with him. And what he did just holding them against the cage was worse to see than if he had taken him down and held him on the ground. So that's why he gets booed every time everyone sees him. And that was his last win. And it was a split. Despite he's a good fighter. He's on a big win streak. I don't know the exact number, but so is Patchy Mix. I believe Patchy Mix was a champion over in Bellator. He only has one loss. Defeated Magomed, Sergio Pettis. If you look at these people records, they're decent. They're good. And anytime you see a Magomed name, he's beating these fighters. So, to keep it short and sweet, this is definitely a pick'em fight. But I'm going to go with Patchy Mix. You know, usually when they bring people over from other organizations, especially if they were previous champion or big star, they try and match them up with a competitive but winnable fight. Which is also surprising because what they're kind of doing Mario Batista a little bit dirty because he's on such a big win streak, and you'd think he'd be kind of climbing his way towards like a top 5, top 3, even maybe a contender or championship fight, but instead they're giving him this new guy. And now that I'm talking this out loud, perhaps the UFC is upset with him for how he fought against Aldo. So yeah, this kind of confirms my pick even more. And I'm going to go with Patchy Mix. It's not going to be easy. Mario's he's a fighter. He's going to put up a hell of a fight. But I hope Mix wins, and I think he's going to win. Next fight, Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland. Yeah, I'm going to go Luque. He got a submission round 1 last fight. And we know Kevin Holland he's usually on the bad side of a submission victory. You know, he's usually the one to get submitted. Though he got one against Michael however you say that name. But we know Mikel is not ground game, submission game type. So obviously Holland was able to exploit that. And the way he performed against Gunnar was embarrassing. He barely won that, and Gunnar hadn't fought in the longest time since then. And Gunnar was in the fight the whole time. Looked like he could have won. And I said during that fight that it seemed to me like they were trying to give Kevin like almost some sort of a layup fight in Gunnar Nelson to give him a win, because Kevin usually alternates wins and losses. And he was already, in an unusual spot where he had 2 losses in a row. The rib loss to Roman, and then the Ranier loss where he got submitted again, right? So, yeah, he got that win. And like I said before, it was win-loss, win-loss, win-loss if you go back and look. And he had 2 losses in a row. So I don't think this is a weird anomaly where it's going to start turning into 2 losses, 2 wins. I mean, it could, but I think it's more likely it's going to be another loss. I mean, he does have the height and the reach. But Luque was fighting Bilal, Jeff Neal, both losses, but he won against Rafael. That's a good win, even though Rafael's older. He's still got game. Lost to Joaquin Buckley. You know, we know Kevin knocked out Joaquin. It's a little concerning. But yeah, against Themba Gorimbo, who was supposed to be like a new guy coming up, gets submitted so quickly. That's what makes this so difficult. So, I think Luque submission. I could keep going back and forth on this. Look at their records. You know, they both got like a similar story at this point. Aside from, I don't think anyone ever thought Kevin was going to get a title shot. But I'll go with Luque to win by submission. And if you think Kevin's going to win, you probably have to go KO. But dude, this is definitely a toss-up, and I don't agree with this minus 275 favorite. But I'll admit, dude, I'm not going to change it on the Tapology, but I probably won't. But again, one of the fights that if you're making long parlays and you want to include this fight in your parlay, you should probably have an identical slip and then just switch out the winners for this fight. Next, Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. Again, ridiculous odds. But, okay, it seems like it's gone down a little bit here, but I saw like minus 700 for Joshua Van at one point. And his loss to Charles Johnson, the KO, was kind of concerning. Gives people questions about his chin, but he came back and won 3 fights in a row after that. You know, showing that he can stay safe and hang in there, get a win. This dude was on a decent win streak before that loss. Yeah, right? So Joshua Van went to decision with Cody Durden, and Bruno Silva KO'd Cody Durden. Wow. And he lost to Manel Kape, but you have to remember, in the Manel Kape fight, he got poked in the eye. He got fouled, and I don't think it was like paused or anything, and Manel Kape just kept on fighting like you should if the ref doesn't stop it. And not to say Manel wasn't winning the fight leading up to that moment, but Bruno was surviving the whole fight. So that loss via KO, TKO is kind of misleading, in my opinion. And in this fight, you should definitely not be laying down money on Joshua Van at these odds. If anything, you want to put the money on the plus 400 side, or include that in your parlay for sure, because Bruno's definitely a live dog in this fight. But we'll go with Van to get a decision victory. Next, we have Asmat Murzakanov versus Brenson Ribeiro. Okay, now this kind of fights, when you got an OV, and if the OV has a O, 14-0-0, he's fighting against someone who's just kind of some guy you throw in there who fights a lot, has wins and losses. Like, this type of fight is just to give Azama another win, in my opinion. And he already has one against Alonzo. Yeah, dude, I mean, if you can beat up Alonzo in a Dustin Jacoby decision win, you should be able to do the same to Brenson, Devin Clark. Wow. Yeah, definitely Asmat. Maybe even a KO. Can see that happening. Wow, despite the age difference and the height difference and the reach, you wouldn't think that it'd be so heavily on Asmat. He lost? No, he won Bruno Lopez. Ming Yan Zhang lost. I already looked at this before, but I'm kind of going over this with you guys. Magomed lost to a Magomed, another 8-0 Magomed. That kind of just proves my point. Chao Machado. DR. Who's that? Yeah, we'll go Asmat. For sure. Sergey Spivak versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. You see here I have Spivak. For a few reasons. And I believe Spivak was already booked on this card and someone dropped out and Waldo's the replacement. I'll go back once I finish all my picks and confirm this or not. But last week, with all the fighters who were initially booked to fight on the card and got replacement fights, all the people who were originally on the card won. There was like 3 separate, fights like that in the last card. So that kind of gives more reasoning to pick Spivak. But they're both good. It's definitely a toss-up. The odds show that, similar size, but the edge goes to Waldo a little bit. He has 1 loss to De Lima. Lucas Bresky, he won. Andrei Avlovsky, that's a good win, despite he's older, because Andre is experienced. Robelis de Spain, that kind of doesn't count. But it's surprising he couldn't finish him. I guess he just fought smart, took him down. Ryan Spann, it's a pretty good win. And over here, Augustus Sakai, KO, that's good. Derek Lewis, submission, that's all right. Cyril Gain lost by KO, that's understandable. Marcin Tyburo, submission win, that's a good win. Jalton Almeida loss. That's okay. That's okay. So, yeah, I will go with Spivak. Give him the edge, but it won't be easy, and I could definitely see this being a very close fight and going to Waldo. So, definitely, again, one of these fights you definitely, if you're making parlays, have an identical slip and consider, switching out the winners of this fight. Because part of me now thinking, I could see Waldo perhaps getting some takedowns and winning some ground control time against Spivak. But if I have to choose, I'll go Spivak. Because everything's so similar, it seems like. And I believe he was one originally scheduled who had been training for a fight this week. Next, Chaos Williams versus Andres Gustafsson. Now, Andres was supposed to be on the last card last week. I believe Chaos Williams was... Again, I think Chaos had someone else he was supposed to fight, and they pulled out or something happened, so now Andres is the one stepping in since he missed out on his opportunity last week. And that might not seem like a big deal, but I feel like that perhaps throws off the timing, because these fighters scheduled their fight camp specifically to peak at a certain point. And if he was supposed to peak last week, and we don't know if he knew for sure he was going to be fighting this week or if he was just kind of starting to rest or relax a little bit. So he might not be peaked anymore. And not only that, he has these fights where he had KOs. And then on the Contender Series, he had a KO. But, we know that Chaos is seasoned in the UFC. Win to Michael Beza. Lost to Randy Brown. That's all right. And it was a decision loss. Rolando Bedoya, decision win. Carlson Harris, that is not that impressive. A loss to Gabriel Bonfim. Yeah, in that fight he was doing it was pretty fair on the striking. Until he put up a good fight there, and until he got dropped a little and then Gabriel jumped on the submission. So I gotta go with Chaos in this fight. Not sure how. Maybe a KO. We'll see. Because I think Andres likes to brawl. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, we'll go chaos. Ariana Lipski. Oh, so she missed weight by 6 pounds? So I don't know what the reasoning is. If she was having trouble making weight and she was just like, forget it. Might as well just come into this fight strong and not have to go through all this. I don't know if the fight's even going to continue at this point. But missing weight doesn't look good. Although last week there were 2 fighters who missed weight. Not by nearly this much, but those 2 fighters that missed weight won their fights. And, so we got this lady from China, Wang, got a KO win. I lost to Gabriel Fernandez by submission. Bruna Brazil, decision win. She was chopping up her legs in that fight. And we know Ariana likes to strike. Although she will go for takedowns if she feels like she's not winning that battle. But if Wang can avoid the ground like she did last fight and strike smart, I could see her getting a win here. Maybe even a KO. But for the most part, wow, this is such a toss-up. I believe we've seen Ariana get KO'd. It's not on here. It's further back in her history. But we'll go with Kong Wang. But I'm not very confident in the minus 500 odds. Next, Ju Sang Yo versus Jekka Saragi. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, we're definitely going with Yo. Jekka had a win recently where he KO'd his opponent, Lucas Alexander. Which everyone thought Lucas was going to win. But I think Lucas took Jekka too lightly. It was a little bit too laxed in the cage, and Jekka caught him. So I think that was a mistake on Alexander's part. And a loss to Weston Wilson doesn't look good. Loss to Anshul Jubli, the Indian fighter, does not look good. Especially to get KO'd by him. This dude does have power when he lands. This dude, he's new coming into this. So, yeah, I'll give the edge to Yo. But I could see either of these guys perhaps getting a KO. I haven't really seen much of Yo fight. But perhaps this fight doesn't go the distance. Could be a good bet for this. If you think Jekka's just going to get easily KO'd again. And if not, maybe he's going to get quote-unquote lucky. Which I don't like to say fighters win by luck because they train to do what they do. But he could get a KO himself. But logical brain, I'll say Yo. And even though I haven't seen him fight and he hasn't fought in the UFC. I'm going to have to look into this some more after this video. But we'll go Yo. Then Keelan versus Yanal. Keelan last fight got that KO, but it was against Jubli. Before that, he had a decision win against Gage. But going in, you see these wins? Like the records, 4-1, 3-1, 7-1. That's why I didn't like him coming into the UFC debut, where he got that win in like the first 10 seconds. So he had a win. Yanal had a win against Trevor Peek, which is pretty good, a decision win. Lost to Chris Duncan is okay. And then I remember that win against Sam Patterson, got that KO. That was a big win. PFL win. I definitely don't like this. The odds. I mean, I like them as far as if you're betting on, but I'm just saying I don't think Sal Kid's gonna win so easily. And in fact, I don't know why I put that. I'll say by decision, perhaps. But again, I'm definitely gonna have Yanal as the winner on one of my parlay slips. Because although he's smaller, he has the way he throws his punches, the technique, plus with just perhaps some natural power that he has, he's a good striker. He looks dangerous in the cage. And he's obviously able to stay safe in most of his fights to avoid like a KO shot like Quinlan landed. So I don't know if we're going to see Quinlan go in there and just put on another performance where he just finds the strikes as easily as he did against Anshul. Perhaps, but it'll be surprising to see if he does that to Yanal. And Yanal's much bigger, much longer. That's got to give him the edge. Just even if it goes to decision, we got to assume he's going to be able to land the more strikes using his reach. And the first fight of the night, Medeiros was one of the people who was supposed to be on the last card, but his opponent pulled out, I believe. No, actually, he pulled out. And he's going against an undefeated fighter in Mark Chonsky. I don't know who Mark Chonsky is. 8-7, 7-3. Different same. 2-8. His opponent was 2-8. 4-1. 4-1. Okay, when he fought someone with more experience, decision. 50-50 fighter, submission. He's shorter. Similar reach. And Medeiros, I thought Medeiros, so he has these wins, KO win. The records look a little better. Isakov, Quinones, Austin Hubbard. Yeah, I'll go with Medeiros because I don't know much about Mark Chonsky, and I don't like the records of some of his opponents. And over here, he's holding a belt. But the fact that Markel was put up a decent fight against Austin Hubbard, even though I thought he should have lost the decision. They do Hubbard dirty in a lot of his fights. He's constantly getting screwed by the judges. But for him to have a close fight against Austin Hubbard, I got to give him the edge. So if this guy Mark is well-rounded, I don't think it's, I think Medeiros got this. Okay, so those are my picks. I mean, they're already saved. I did change one thing on here. But I want to go back really quick and look at some of the weight misses and some of the replacement fighters. Okay, let me find that real quick. Okay, so let's go down here. Canceled and fizzled bouts. So Azamat, the guy who was already the favorite for so many reasons. I didn't even mention this in the video. But he himself was supposed to fight Johnny Walker, so he's getting a replacement fighter. That's even more reason to go with Azamat. Mario Batista. So his replacement fighter is Patchy Mix. So that's concerning. And like I said, I'm kind of hating on Mario because what he did to Aldo, the way he fought him. Dude, if he went out there and knocked him out, like, or submitted him, or put up a war, like he pretended, that's the other reason. He was talking like, oh, it's going to be a bloodbath. And then he just held him up the cage. That's why people hate him. It's all coming back to me. But, so, I mean, Apache Mix, like I said, this is a real challenge. Looks like it's going to be a real challenge. Someone who's only lost once. Fought good people, just as Mario has. It's a toss-up. And I did pick Apache Mix, but if my logic proves to be correct, that's why I got to listen to myself. And I'll have parlay slips where I got Mario Batista as the winner. Even though my official pick, I had Patchy Mix. Like I said, perhaps the UFC's trying to teach Mario a lesson for what he did to Aldo. So next we had Sergey Spivak. So he's getting a replacement fighter. He was supposed to fight Shamil Gaziev. So he was the one planning to fight on this card. And now he's getting I forgot who his new fighter is. The guy with one loss. We just looked at him. I can picture his face. So Waldo Cortez Acosta. Yeah, so I'll stick with that pick. Sergey Spivak and Chaos Williams. Again, he was supposed to fight Uros Medic. Now he's getting a replacement fighter of the guy who was supposed to be on the last card. And his fight's pulled out. Andres Gustafsson, right? He had two people pull out. Uros Medic, Albert Tata. Yeah, so this is gonna be interesting to watch. In this fight, I'm gonna pay attention to how Chaos Williams' opponent performs, Gustafsson. I want to see the effects of peaking on 1 week, we assume, and then fighting the next week and see how he looks. I'll go back and look again on the scales, and then just during the fight itself to see how he performs. But yeah, we'll still go with Chaos. Oh, and Chaos had two people pull out. Wow. And then also, so I guess the only weight miss was Silva by 6 pounds. Crazy. And like I said last week, the two people who missed weight, they ended up winning their fight. So I don't know if perhaps it was something to consider. And I make lots of parlays, so I'll admit I'll have Silva as the winner in some of the fights. Although it does seem far-fetched even with that logic. And I think the logical pick is still C. Wang. Anyway, those are my picks. And if I have to go... Well, I'm going to go over just who I think are using logic, who are like the most likely winners. I would say I'll skip the main event because, like I said, I don't know if there's. I already went into that, so I say Kayla Harrison, and then also I'll say Azamat. And yeah, I mean, just there's some more who are like kind of solid picks, but if I'm just gonna give you two right now, and I would say Kayla Harrison and Azamat. I know there's other big favorites on the card, but I'll pass on those for being like locks. If you want two locks, I'd say Kayla and Azamat. Good luck to everyone. Drop some of your picks in the comments or preferably some of your parlays that you're going to be dropping or that you already placed. Let me know who you think's going to win the main event. Go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Turn on your notifications if you want to catch my post-fight reaction and recap video. And also I drop some other type of videos from time to time, some UFC chit chat where I just go over some of the fight news. And another social media platform I'm on quite often is X. So go ahead and look for my X. It's MMAInstigator. There's a blue check mark next to it. And good luck to you.